All right. I think we're at the top of the time, so I'm going to go ahead and get things kicked off for you, Steve. Welcome, everybody, to our last but not least session for the day. As they say, we save the best for last. We've got Steve presenting today from Pacejet on how to tackle today's shipping challenges. So from there, I'm going to turn it over to you, and I'll keep an eye on the Q&A for you throughout the session. Thanks, Stephen.
Excellent. Thanks, Liz. Appreciate it. Thank you, everybody, for joining this afternoon. As Liz mentioned, my name is Steve Karem. I am Senior Director of Sales here at Pacejet. And today we will be talking about, because Pacejet is a shipping software, tackling today's shipping challenges. So really looking at what are the key hurdles that folks are facing today, and then what are some strategies that you all can take to sort of solve some of those problems, different approaches, different perspectives. So hopefully this is a helpful session. We were talking about this a little bit earlier too. I know we're holding everybody up from cocktails, so hopefully we have saved the best for last and want to make this as beneficial a session for everybody. So we'll go ahead and get started. Like I said, we'll start off talking about some of the challenges that exist today, give a little bit of the lay of the land. I know I'm probably preaching to the choir here. However, we'll take a look right after that at some of those specific strategies, and they'll be focused around some different areas in terms of how to kind of diversify and leverage different systems in order to tackle some of those challenges. And then, of course, at the end, we're going to give just a little bit of an overview of who we are here at Pacejet, how we work with Acumatica, some of the different features and functions, ways that we can help our customers and Acumatica users ultimately tackle those challenges that they're facing. So to kick things off, like I mentioned, we'll start by talking about the challenges that shippers are facing today. Capacity issues really being number one. There are capacity shortages all across the board, whether we're talking about small parcel, LTL freight, or full truckload. Doesn't matter. There's a squeeze pretty much no matter where you look. Folks are having trouble getting trucks, having trouble scheduling deliveries. There's kind of everything in between that's been going wrong and putting squeeze on customers that we're seeing and prospects that we're talking to, as well as just shippers in general, due to a couple of different reasons. If you think about in 2020, there were 3,000 different logistics companies that shut down. There were a lot of mergers and buyouts of different 3PLs selling different business units, like UPS selling their LTL division to T-Force. There's been a lot of consolidation, and on top of that, there's been a shortage of drivers, shortage of dock workers, support staff to maintain those trucks, as well as the semiconductor shortage, which has just caused carriers to not be able to get trucks. They can't buy new trucks. They're not being delivered because they're not ready to go. And there's also just been a shift in growth in different industries. As people have seen, certain truckload shortages, we've had a lot of shippers who have experimented by, segmenting out and shipping LTL freight. You've had some folks go from small parcel and consolidate up into LTL. And so the kind of shifting volumes across different shipping modes has caused a bit of a squeeze for shippers as well. Now, on top of all of that, with the shortage of drivers, with the issues getting different trucks, that is increasing carrier rates that they are offering to shippers. Job market, of course, being as competitive as it is pushing driver pay way up, which causes carriers to take those fees or to take the additional cost they're paying their drivers and pass that along to their shippers. So costs are up in order to get any truck nowadays, on top of just driver pay and just some of the standard factors in terms of having trouble buying the actual resources to take the shipments from A to B. If you think about the parcel side of things, surcharges are up. There are cutting programs. UPS and FedEx are cutting different programs like guaranteed service programs or refunds, adding things like weight surcharges, you name it. So it is more expensive than ever to ship something from A to B, really no matter the mode. Labor shortages, of course, it's tough to hire workers, and that's really on the driver's side. Obviously, we've talked about that, but then also in the warehouse. You think cross-docking, you think any support staff, any maintenance staff, it's just tough to hire for everybody, and that's not even in the transportation industry. I think everybody's feeling the squeeze there. And then seasonal spikes, as we think about the holiday season coming up here in Q4, that's certainly making things more difficult for everybody, but also for shippers. Because increased volume, increased demand, customers are still expecting kind of the Amazon effect of having fast and free delivery. And the nature of the market is just naturally changing, and it's tough for shippers to stay competitive while ultimately following through on their promise to their customers. And so I know that was all fairly doom and gloom, so I wanted to let you know there are plenty of ways to combat this. We'll talk a little bit about kind of 4 key strategies to take when looking at different areas to combat the squeeze that's being put on shippers, and we'll go through those here. So first thing that we're going to talk about is really focusing on integrating business systems. Having systems tied together in order to effectively communicate is going to be extremely important. We'll go into some more detail there. Increasing carrier choice, eliminating manual processes, just saving time overall. And I think most importantly, choosing reliable partners. It's a fairly simple concept at the end of the day, but I want to make sure that we end with that. So we'll start off with, like I mentioned, integrating business systems. You've implemented or you're looking at Acumatica in order to grow the business as much as possible. And our customers, Acumatica users are implementing their ERP in order to scale for growth and really drive growth in the business. Shipping with the various difficulties that customers are seeing can sometimes be thought of as a bottleneck to that growth. And it is sort of true, at the end of the day, you're only able to grow as much as you're able to distribute your items out to your customers or sell your item to your customers. So as sales grows, the ability to scale up and ship more, ultimately has to grow as well. So the ERP at the end of the day is kind of your central hub. And if you think about integrating different business systems from a shipping perspective, you really want to make sure that you've got one single platform that can communicate with all of the different carriers that you are working with. You want to make sure that not only is the information effectively transferring to your shipping software, but then that information is transferred out effectively to the various carriers that you want to connect to. Whether it be different modes, small parcel, LTL freight, domestic, international, whether you want to work with 3PLs, you want to make sure that you've got one single point, no siloed systems, and that information is seamlessly transitioning back and forth with accurate data so that you are receiving accurate rates and not working through a patchwork of different systems or processes that just aren't going to be effective. You can't have different terminals for a UPS shipment versus a FedEx shipment, or a parcel terminal and a freight terminal. You want to be able to provide the flexibility to scale and grow your different workstations so that they can effectively manage all shipment modes without having to go through a major switch or having to go through a lot of configuration steps in order to get that done. And I think what that does as well is if you have the information transitioning effectively, you have the information going from ERP to shipping software to carrier effectively, first off, increases visibility quite a bit, but also it enables your warehouse workers to be able to confidently execute shipments. They eliminate opportunity for errors when you eliminate manual data entry. If you know that your data is accurate and you put the right steps in place, or you put the right automation processes in place, you can essentially eliminate opportunities for error altogether and really empower your work staff to be able to effectively operate knowing that they are sending the right items with the right order, that right order is going to the right customer, and then they can do that job quickly and effectively. And again, we mentioned this, reliably connect to all of your carriers. You have to make sure that shipping data is being passed to carriers, not only from a rating perspective, but also from a shipping execution perspective. I can rate shop up front on a sales order if I want to, using Pacejet, of course. But I want to make sure that when I do that rate shop step up front, I've got accurate information that's being sent to the carrier to provide an accurate cost to my customer. I can set a good expectation up front of shipping costs and be able to follow through on that expectation on price if that's ultimately being billed through to the customer, so that we're giving a good experience entirely through the process. And then once shipments are sent out, you want to make sure that your carriers are sending back tracking information, cost information, any markup information that you want to send out. These are all data points that you can communicate to your customers to be able to improve the customer experience and make sure that they have all of the information that they need in the kind of age of Amazon, where they expect as soon as an order goes out the door, they want a tracking number in their inbox that they can see. So we talked a little bit about communicating directly with carriers. One of I would say the easiest ways to solve a capacity crunch is to increase the choice of carriers that you're going to work with. More options equals more coverage. Different carriers have different strengths in certain areas, whether we're talking about small parcel. Obviously, you've got your big three, UPS, FedEx, Postal Service, but maybe you've got specific lanes or you're in a specific location where a Speedy or an On-Track, a regional carrier might excel. It's always helpful to be able to diversify your carrier network wherever possible in order to have as much coverage as possible. You might get better service, you might get better pricing depending on the folks that you're working with, but whether it's parcel, whether it's freight, always good to have a diverse carrier network when you are in a time where there's a capacity crunch. You can also sort of creatively approach different shipping scenarios that you may be running into. Whether we're talking about consolidation, looking for opportunities to consolidate multiple shipments into a single transaction that's going to go out to a customer's location. So multiple parcels going into an LTL, specialty services, all sorts of different consolidators, different programs that can be used through either a special service with a carrier or through a consolidator like a UPS, iParcel, DHL, e-commerce, all sorts of different things like that. Or also things like zone skipping, giving yourself effective ways to be able to package different shipments together, send those across the country, break them out, and then send those out to the final customer location. Sometimes you just have to get creative in terms of how best to manage the various shipping scenarios that you're running into. If you find commonalities across different order channels, across different customer types, sometimes it is effective to be able to take an alternative approach in terms of managing those shipments. And these last two, I'll say, sort of go hand in hand. Consider a 3PL and increase available services. Considering a 3PL, I think, is huge. If anyone is having any capacity issues, I think it's always worth talking with a 3PL to see if they can help with some of that capacity crunch. Instead of going direct to an LTL provider where they've got their own trucks, they've got their own set of lanes, and they're going to have, to an extent, a limit of services that are available to offer, a 3PL is going to give you, at the very least, a wide variety of services through, think, a single contract. It's one negotiation point. They're going to give you multiple options per lane. If you give, an Ohio to Texas freight shipment, you're going to have maybe 5 options to be able to cover it through one 3PL contract. You could have 25 options to cover it. Sometimes hundreds, sometimes thousands of different carrier options that are available. And I think within that too, there's a variety of different services that can be used. We talked a little bit about some of the zone skipping side of things, but UPS, iParcel, DHL, e-commerce, there's a lot of consolidators and specialty programs that can be used in addition to your standard roster of carriers in a pinch, to be able to access those and be able to take care and make sure that the shipments that you're sending out are getting to where they need to go in a timely manner is huge. When we think about some of the processes or some of the problems that customers run into, eliminating manual processes is, from an internal perspective, probably one of the biggest things that you can do. You want to connect to the ERP. Again, Acumatica users are implementing their ERP in order to grow the business. So you don't want to have automated order management, automated rate shopping, standard streamlined picking processes, and then you get to the shipment side and you're keying in information, copying, pasting information, and everything is very manual, very analog, and not transferring back and forth. You want to leverage an integrated system with your ERP in order to automate as many process flows as possible. Sometimes that means completely eliminating a separate interface. If you can have accurate data passing back and forth to a shipping system without even leaving, in this case, Acumatica, that very well may be the best option for you. Leverage some of the automated processes that are available in Acumatica. If you pick the right partner, you know that automatically information is transitioning back and forth, and that you are able to basically handle everything in a one-stop shop, which is your ERP. There's always going to be cases, though, where sometimes you may need to go outside of the system. So even when that is the case, it's helpful to still have one process or one system in place to be able to manage various order channels, whether that's going to be baked in entirely within Acumatica or through a separate interface where you're packing and shipping. Again, it's automation, seamless transfer of information is critical to make sure that not only are things quick and easy, but you've got accurate data that is being sent back and forth and ultimately affecting everything else down the line. I think with the integrations as well, taking advantage of any flexibility, configurability is huge. And that kind of goes in line with setting your warehouse up for success. Is the more that you can configure, the more that you are able to adjust yourself, because ultimately no one knows your business better than you, the better you will be able to support the various business processes or the various shipping processes that are going to need to take place in the warehouse. And I think that being able to configure, being able to move to, let's say, a low touch or a no touch process, where either it's baked into the ERP or you've got warehouse staff at shipping terminals operating out of one system, but they're never touching a keyboard, they're never using a mouse. It's a 1-2 scan process in order to process a single order, ship out 10, 25 orders, you name it. It's extremely important to make sure that you are able to configure the systems that you want to use and set your warehouse staff up to be able to, like we said earlier, work confidently and effectively, kind of be that growth driver for the business. Last but not least, choosing reliable partners. I know I mentioned this pretty simple concept at the end, but it is critically important for shippers to choose the right partners when they're working on their shipping execution, whether that be a shipping software, a shipping connector baked into Acumatica, or the carriers that they're going to work with. You want to make sure that the people that you're working with are ultimately going to partner for your success, have a stake in the game, and want to make sure that your business is as successful as possible. And just the same with the shipping softwares, you want to make sure that your carriers are holding up their end of the bargain. A lot of times contracts can be a little tough to negotiate, but if you do negotiate pretty strongly, you get good rates from your carriers, you get good pricing from your various vendors that you're going to be working with, along with a promise and a true partnership to be able to drive growth in your business. That is absolutely critical, and they should always deliver on what's promised, whether that's from a software perspective or it's from a carrier service perspective. There's all sorts of different pieces to that. One other piece to that is the reliability of the service levels that are being offered, and the technology that you are choosing is absolutely key. When you think about Acumatica, you want to make sure that if you're communicating with carriers, if you're going to be choosing a system in order to ship, you want to make sure that the technology is solid. You want to make sure the integration is rock solid, and that not only the integration to the ERP is certified, but the integration to the various carriers that you want to connect to are certified. There's a lot of different carrier connections, APIs out there. It's far, far easier to go through one vendor who's got certified connections to various carriers out there, whether they be small parcel, freight, or 3PL, as opposed to building out different API connections yourself, because the initial lift is extremely difficult. You're sort of flying solo, which certainly makes things difficult as well. But then also the ongoing maintenance and certification as those carriers roll out different services, as they roll out new API versions, is a huge effort for someone to go through alone. So again, it's hugely important to make sure that you are partnering with the right vendors in order to process shipments effectively, and make sure that the connections and the information that you're going to be sending out to your carriers is accurate and that connection is reliable. So those are the primary pieces that we wanted to talk through today from a sort of a strategies perspective. Of course, I mentioned that we'll end this with a little bit of a Pacejet plug. So we'll talk a little bit about Pacejet, and then I know we've got cocktails coming up, so we'll maybe wrap things up just a little bit earlier. I know we've got about 10 minutes left. But Pacejet, for those of you who are not familiar, we are a cloud-based multi-carrier shipping software. So we've been around for the last 16, 17 years. We've been a part of the Acumatica community since 2017. We are fulfilled by Acumatica, but even taking that a step further, our integration is actually built by Acumatica themselves. So we have, again, been a part of the Acumatica community since 2017, really joined the Fulfilled by Acumatica program here starting at the beginning of 2021. But cloud-based multi-carrier shipping software really designed to help our customers and Acumatica users seamlessly and effectively manage their various shipping processes, whether that be quoting, packing, shipping execution for all sorts of different order channels, all sorts of different shipment types, small parcel, LTL, 3PL or broker shipments, domestic, international shipments. All of that can be done through flexible workflows integrated with Acumatica. And at the end of the day, if you want to use Pacejet's interface, if you want to use Acumatica's interface, you can connect really however you'd like and configure your interface or your process to fit your business needs. We connect right now to just under 70 carriers at this point. Like I mentioned, it's small parcel. We work with obviously the big carriers. We work with a variety of regional parcel carriers as well. We work with the top 25 LTL providers in the United States, a few in Canada as well. And then we work with 14 3PLs. So if you think about Blue Grace, Worldwide Express, Global Trans, a lot of the main 3PLs are covered as well. So like we said earlier, if a customer wants to cast a little bit of a wider net while going through one negotiation point or one contract, that's a very easy way for our customers to be able to cover any particular lanes where they might be having capacity issues. One thing to note with these carrier connections, this is not just an outsourced carrier network. We maintain all of these connections ourselves. This is the Pacejet carrier network. So we are building, maintaining, recertifying all of these carrier connections every single year. As we add carriers into the network, those integrations are built and maintained by Pacejet, connecting directly to the carrier's APIs. So we do maintain those certifications. You know that the solution that is being offered and the connection to the carriers that you're working with is going to be reliable and accurate. As far as Pacejet and Acumatica, our main goal, I mentioned this a bit earlier, is to provide kind of four main functions: quoting, packing, shipping, tracking, and reporting. Acumatica obviously has order management systems in place, has WMS features in place, has a variety of different things that manage sort of the order to pick cycle. Where Pacejet really carries the ball forward, though, as you can see in the orange boxes here, is that we pick up and help our customers package orders in a variety of different ways, whether that's using Acumatica's packaging or Pacejet packaging, and then help them ship those orders out. We can certainly support quoting from, let's say, a sales quote record or a sales order record in Acumatica, help our customers rate shop or estimate shipping costs using our package optimization tools within Acumatica. But when it comes to packing and shipping, we understand that our customers have a variety of different workflows that they may want to support. They may want to pack certain parcel shipments, ship certain parcel shipments entirely within Acumatica. Maybe their freight shipments or their 3PL shipments they want to manage inside of Pacejet due to more complex packaging scenarios, certain special services. We also have a variety of different tools around scan packing, item validation at the time of packaging, a lot of different pieces that we offer to our customers. Once the shipments are completed, of course, we'll generate all standard documents, carrier labels, bills of lading, domestic, international documents, you name it. And then, of course, return carrier information, package information, cost, tracking information, all back into the ERP so that you can know exactly where each order is. Have links out to be able to view where that specific shipment is at, and then ultimately communicate that information out to your customers in order to provide that status update. Like we said, the Amazon effect is going to continue to be important. Expectations are only getting higher in terms of the service level that shippers need to provide to their end customers. That's pretty much all we have for today, or all I have for today, I should say. I appreciate everybody jumping on here. I know we've got about 5 minutes left. I figure we can maybe open it up for any Q&A. If anybody has any particular questions, feel free to fire away.
Thanks, Stephen. Great session this afternoon. Just a reminder, if you do have questions, you can put them in the chat or the Q&A. And as we're waiting for any last minute questions to come in, just a reminder that immediately after this is the Avalara happy hour. So feel free to head over to that right after this, and we will end our great 2 days of sessions to have some fun with everyone and some good networking. All right. Well, I don't see any questions coming in, Steve. So people are always welcome to head over to your booth as well in the expo and ask any outstanding questions that we didn't get covered today. But with that, I think we can go ahead and drop off and take a quick bio break before we head to the happy hour. So thanks, everybody. It's been a great couple days. The acu-connect board greatly appreciates everybody attending and to the sponsors for presenting. And we'll talk to you guys all soon.
Thanks, everybody.